Hello, and welcome to episode 38 of Things I've Learned from Barry Harris. I thought today we would tackle a little bit of a different topic, which is a minor 2-5 or a 2-5 in minor. The reason that I thought I should do this separately is because in previous episodes we've talked about Barry referring to 2-5 as only 5. So for instance, in the key that we'll choose today, let's say A, and we're going to think A minor or A minor 6. The 2 chord, normally if we were doing A major, would be B minor 7 to E7, going to A major. Barry thinks of that B minor 7 to E7. In terms of soloing, he thinks of all that as E7 the whole way through. Now the distinction comes in when we're going to a minor, like A minor. He thinks of the 2 chord for that 5 as B minor 7 flat 5, which it is, B minor 7 flat 5 to E7, going to A minor. Now, he doesn't like to just think E7 there. This is where he likes to think G7 for the B minor 7 flat 5, and then the E7. You could think E7, but E7, so you think like this, G7 up and down to the 3rd of E. So this is the scale that you would get if you were doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, going to A minor. So it's a measure piece of B minor 7 flat 5 to E7. The scales would be G7 up and down to the 3rd of E, and then just a regular A minor 6 up. That would be the scale if we were just going to do a turnaround and then go back to it again. So the importance of that distinction, though, is can't be overlooked, because he likes to bring in different things when it comes to the minor 2-5, let's say, than even Bird did. For instance, Bird, when he plays minor 2-5, he does his or whatever his phrase is on E7, but it's a strict E7 going into A minor. Barry makes a distinction there. So he comes up with all sorts of things going from G7 running it into E7. So let's take all the things you're supposed to know for G7. So you have to know your G7 scale. You have to know your scale in thirds, your scale in triads. You have to know your scale in chords, and so on. You have to know your scale with a half step below in thirds, and so on. You have to know your half step rules for your dominants, which are in previous episodes, which you should go back and look at. But let's create a line on B minor 7 flat 5 going to E7, and let's say, just for the sake of argument, we'll start on A. There's a lot of things you could do from A. A you could think of, or you should think of, as the 2nd of G7. Now, there's a lot of things you can do from the 2nd of G7. Let's just run down and put no half steps. So G7 down to the 3rd of E. That's a nice phrase. So let's see how that would feel. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. And then from the diminished, I pivoted, and then I ended on the 5th of A minor. So let's do that again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'll try it again, where it actually sounds good. 2, 3. So there's an example. Let's maybe throw a triplet in between the 2nd and the 3rd to make it sound a little bit, I don't know, to give it a little less of an 8th note-y sound. 2, 3. That's one example. Or we could have done a lot of things from there. We could have started on the 2nd and come down a chord. That's a nice phrase. Okay, so let's try that. 1, 2, 3. Well, I came out of it in a kind of a strange way, but you get the idea. I came down a chord. Or we could have actually, after we came down the chord. Let's try that one. So that was, we came down a chord for the second. Now again, that's down a chord from the second of G7. And then I went back and grabbed the tonic of the G7 and I put in 1/2 step. Down to the third of E, hit the E, and then came up to the tonic. So let's see what that sounds like. And maybe we'll put that same triplet in. See, these are just little things that you start to create, running one thing into the next thing. Those are all really important. Again, another thing you have to know for a dominant is what's the important arpeggios. The important arpeggios for a dominant are found on the root, are found on the 5th, and are found on the 7th. So you have to think to yourself, okay, let's start using some of those. So if we said, okay, so that was starting on the second again of G7, coming down 2/2 steps. Now once I get to the 7, I'm going to come down a major arpeggio, which is one of the arpeggios, the important arpeggios on a dominant. So let's see. Now that time after I came down the important arpeggio, then I came down an augmented arpeggio from the E7, which is nice also. So let's see. Again, using the things that we worked on previously from the dominants. Let's take the important minor on the G7, which is D minor. Let's create a nice little phrase with D minor. Let's maybe start on the 3rd. That's a nice one. So we'll do 3/2 steps. So we get to tonic. And then we'll come down a D minor arpeggio from the 3rd. Then hit the E. And then end on 4/3 of, or just end on 3. The 4 is still a part of the E7. So let's see. Again, coming down the important arpeggio. Maybe let's try. Okay, so that's some of Barry's chromatic scale, which is, so if we wanted to put a 1/2 step between the 4 and the 3 here, we'd have to jump up to 5. So let's do that. And then I put another 1/2 step between 3 and 2 of the G7. And I came down a D minor arpeggio from the 5th. Then I came down to the 3rd of E7. So let's see. That's a nice one. Let's do that again. A nice one. Also, using the minor 2/5, well, this is also true of the major 2/5. You can think of, I might think G7, instead of running it down to the 3rd of E, we can use the tritone. The tritone of E7 is B flat 7. And what's nice about the tritone is the 3rd of E is also the flat 7th of B flat. The flat 7th of E is also the 3rd of B flat. So the 3rd and the 7ths are the two most important intervals in a chord, which is why you can do the rule for the tritone and replace one for the other, because the 3rds and the 7ths flip-flop. So let's try that one then. Let's do G7 and let's run it into B flat 7 and then resolve it into A. So let's see. Oh, let's see. That's a nice one. So I I came up B flat 7, flat 7, tonic, second, third, I jumped up to 6, and then hit 5, and then resolved it to the 5th of A minor 6. So let's see. That's nice. That was major 7, ending on a major 7 for the A minor, which has a very pretty sound to it. Let's try that one again. So 1/2 step down to the second, but the second is really the 5th of the D minor, which is an important arpeggio found on the 5th. I came down an arpeggio. Then when I came down a 1/2 step, now I'm thinking already B flat 7. So I came up the flat 7, tonic, second, third, 6, 5. So then I ended on major 7 the second time. But when you start to see how all these run into each other, it's really great. Let's come up with another one. Let's say oh, that's a nice one. Let's put 3/2 steps. But now I'm going to put one more 1/2 step in between 3 and 2 of B7. B flat 7. And then I'm going to come down a chord from the second of the B7, of B flat 7, I'm sorry. So, and I'll end on the second, which is pretty. So 1, 2, 3. Do that one again. Really pretty stuff. Just a few ideas to get you started to look through how you create lines using these things that we've been working on. And again, if this is too advanced, if you have to stop it, stop the record, stop the video and then go back and check it out. If there's something that I mentioned in it that you're not sure about, I think everything I've discussed is in one of the previous episodes. I know there's a lot of episodes to go through, but you can check them out and just to see if they're helpful. But these are all things that you have to know in order to create lines. Too many times I see different people talking about jazz lines, and they just think, well, you play this scale into this scale. That's great. You can know the scale. The scales are important. The next step after you run the scales is to create pretty lines with them. I feel like that's the part that a lot of people skip. They just run the scale up and they just run a scale up and down. But that's not playing anything. That's playing a scale. You have to try to make music out of the scale. The scale is not music itself. You have to do something with it. So this is the next step of getting you to that point. And for me too, it's the thing I work on all the time. Trying to take the knowledge that Barry has given us and create lines with it. I mean, after all, that's what the whole thing's about. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode about playing 2/5 in minor or minor 2/5. And yeah, enjoy practicing. Thanks.